Welcome and thank you for joining Viewpointes. This is a gathering place for greater understanding through diverse stories and shared experiences. My name is Jasmine Turner. I am a news anchor and reporter for NBC 12 right here in Richmond, and I'm very honored. I can't just say happy, but I'm honestly honored to moderate this episode of Viewpointes for the Richmond Ballet. I am a former Richmond Ballet student, and so Richmond Ballet will always hold a special place in my heart. And the people on this call, new and those who have known for a long time, also holding a special place in my heart. But this series is brought to you by our series partner, Truist. Truist's purpose is to inspire and build better lives and communities through their commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, both internally and externally. They boldly believe in the power of what we can achieve together, and you can learn more from them at truist.com. And today's episode is brought to you by episode partner PwC. PwC's diversity initiatives and strategies are designed to attract, develop, and advance the most talented individuals regardless of their race, sexual orientation, religion, age, gender, disability status, or any other dimension of diversity. Their distinctive approach to diversity is based on a belief that we each have a personal accountability for success in this area. PwC provides their people with training and tools to help increase their awareness and understanding of differences and why they matter, so their actions can contribute to their inclusive and high-performing workplace culture. So in today's episode, this is the moment that is the most exciting. This is activism through the arts, and I have the pleasure of chatting first with Ira White. Ira, welcome. It is so good to see you again. Always good when I get a chance to see you. Ira White is a native of Richmond, Virginia. Discovered his love for dance through Minds in Motion, Richmond Ballet's community engagement program for fourth grade students. Another great memory that we have together from years past. But through the years, he rose through the ranks of the School of Richmond Ballet, including a year spent in the trainee program and 3 seasons in the second company. Ira is currently in his 6th year with the main company, and I just have to say congratulations. I didn't realize that. I'm really happy for you. Also joining us, Kris Graves. And Kris, we welcome you here. We are thankful that you are here, but Kris is an artist and publisher based in New York and London. He received his BFA in Visual Arts from SUNY Purchase College and has been published and exhibited globally, including the National Portrait Gallery in London, England, and the Aperture Gallery, New York, among others. Permanent collections include the Metropolitan Museum of Art, the Schomburg Center, Whitney Museum, the Guggenheim Museum, Museum of Fine Arts Houston, Brooklyn Museum, and the Wedge Collection Toronto, amongst others. Graves also sits on the board of Blue Sky Gallery, Oregon Center for the Photographic Arts, Portland, and the Architectural League of New York as Vice President of Photography. Kris Graves creates artwork that deals with societal problems and aims to use art as a means to inform people about cultural issues. He also works to elevate the representation of people of color in the fine art canon and to create opportunities for conversation about race, representation, and urban life. Graves creates photographs of landscapes and people to preserve memory. And
well, that's a lot. Thank you very much.
We thank you. Wow, I'm just so impressed and really moved by that. I'm reading this and I'm just sitting here in awe, but thank you. We're happy to have you. And lastly, Ava Holloway and Kennedy George are joining us, and we welcome you both. So glad that you could join us today. Ava and Kennedy have performed and trained at the Central Virginia Dance Academy since 2009 and 2010, and they are both co-founders of the nonprofit organization Brown Ballerinas for Change. The mission is to help create advocacy, social justice, and to increase participation of underrepresented populations in ballet. Ava attends St. Catherine's School in Richmond and serves as a teaching assistant for adaptive dance at Central Virginia Dance Academy. She has found purpose in justice seeking through dance and aspires to be a doctor and dreams of saving lives. Most recently, Ava co-authored a book with her mom entitled My Ancestors' Wildest Dreams. And Kennedy has spent the last 3 years in the International Baccalaureate program and has been accepted into the Center for the Arts Specialty Center at Henrico High School. Kennedy has a passion for dance and spends her summers attending summer intensives around the country, including the Debbie Allen Dance Academy, Joffrey Ballet, Dance Theater of Harlem, Commercial Dance Intensive, and the Richmond Ballet. Kennedy believes in equality, diversity, and inclusion for all, and empowering girls to be change makers. She has volunteered as a dance assistant with Miracle in Motions, a nonprofit org that provides dance instruction for special needs people, and is a junior board member of Blow Out Your Candles Foundation. Kennedy aspires to be a professional dancer as well as study aquatic veterinarian medicine. So we are really happy that you all are here. And jumping right into the question here, and we can just take it, each person take a moment to answer this, but did you all consider your art a form of activism before last summer? And when you first committed to your art form, was activism at all what drew you in? So whoever wants to answer first.
I guess I'll go ahead first. When I first started with dance, it never really occurred to me that activism was something that could be a talking point or anything like that. I didn't think about dance as anything more than just performing on stage. I definitely knew it was a form of education because with the Minds in Motion program, there was like an overall theme that the children were taught at the end of the show. But I never thought of it as like a means of bringing social change about anything. But not until I guess high school was when I could tell or I saw like the true nature or the true capacity of dance and what it could do and what it could how far it could reach out and the different audiences it could reach out to. So yeah, it's one of those things that over time you kind of understand how much of an impact your art form can have on not just yourself but communities and people that are within your community.
I can go next. I have been making work that could be considered maybe political or movement style work since about 2014, or when Black Lives Matter became pretty popular. I mean, I think that was the first time it was very popular in America, when people started to be murdered on camera by police officers. Like, that was around that time. So I started to work. I mean, before that, I was just making landscapes around the world, and kind of as a Black man traveling around the world, trying to show that point of view. But now I look more inward every time I make a photograph about American culture for the most part. And when I'm making portraits, it's about giving some agency to the people that are in my portraits. So 2014 is when I started doing that, and 2020 is just another like bump up. I mean, we just have to. I mean, now it's just there's no space for anything else in my career. It has to be about this. Like there, yeah. I mean, I think that's understandable.
Ava or Kennedy, whoever wants to go first.
I can go. So I started dancing when I was younger, and I was inspired by my sister, who also danced at the same studio as me. And so when I was younger, I definitely didn't know that I would take on this course or this path. And I was just dancing because it was something I loved to do. And so my mind definitely wasn't on activism at that age, but I'm so grateful that I've chosen this path and were able to bring light to something that needed to be uncovered.
I definitely agree with that. I'd say before last summer, I didn't really consider it. I knew dance was always a big part of my life, and that it was something that you could use to do pretty much anything, but I don't think I had considered activism until that moment in the summer. And I don't think activism was what drew me to it. As Kennedy said, one of my siblings also danced, and that kind of got me into dance. But now that we have our nonprofit, Brown Ballerinas for Change, I think activism, being part of dance, can be something now that draws people to dance, which would be super cool to see in the future.
And you mentioned it, Ava and Kennedy, so kind of jumping into talking about BBFC, or Brown Ballerinas for Change, for those who are not familiar with your nonprofit that you have started, talk about that and the difference that you've maybe seen through your work so far.
So we have just been approved for 2 grants in January and February, and we are starting a ambassador program where we will hire teachers to come in and teach the students that wouldn't be able to dance otherwise. Also, we have a closet now where you can donate lightly used dancewear so that we can just continue to give back to the community. And that's kind of what we're doing right now, just doing a bunch of performances and continuing our work from the summer so that we can make sure that it wasn't just a moment and continue the movement for as long as it can go on until we actually see real change.
Kennedy, do you want to share at all about the nonprofit?
So Ava covered most of it, but definitely talking about a lot of the opportunities that we want to give others and allowing ourselves to be uncomfortable and push those conversations that need to be had in a healthy manner, and just giving other people chances and being the help that we know we can be.
Beautiful. So this question is for everyone as well, and kind of tying in the work of dance and the photography. If everyone wants to talk about your experience at Marcus David Peters Circle and the importance of you to document your time there. Everyone was there for different reasons and had different moments there, but talk about that. And then I have a follow-up question for Kris about your time at Marcus David Peters Circle.
I can go first if no one else wants to go first.
Go for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I would say the environment there in the summer and just the overall experience, it was super life-changing, I'd say, and something that you don't see often. Sorry, my dog is barking. But in the middle of a global pandemic, I thought it was super amazing to see our community come together for a cause and just be there for each other. And I thought just like living in Richmond and seeing everything go down, it was just, well, we say this all the time, but it was super conflicting to see how we could contribute. And I think by using dance and also bringing the dance community into Black Lives Matter, I think that was a great thing that could have been done. And I don't think I would have done much differently. I think super cool what has been achieved since, well, it's almost been a year now, but yeah.
Yeah. With being raised in Richmond and being a part of the community, to see that space transform into what it became was honestly something that I wasn't expecting. Because when I was a child, like you drive around Monument Avenue and you have all these, these Confederate statues, and there's like this sort of like there's a sense that you can't, that's not a part of you, that's not a part of your story or history, so you can't go up to it, you can't interact with it, you can't do anything but look at it from a distance. And the fact that it transformed into a place for the community to congregate and make art and converse and have fun, it was really transformative. It seemed to be, it showed the history of what Richmond was, with how it was, with being untouched and everything, to having people there. It shows like what Richmond has become. It was a real interesting transformation for that area.
I would say that I came down to Richmond on a job, so I was working with National Geographic for on a long form photographic journey through the South, photographing a lot of racism in the landscape, including the Confederate stuff on Monument Ave and around Richmond, as well as the hundreds of other Confederate monuments in Virginia. It's all good. And it was the middle of pandemic, so I didn't know what I was getting myself into for the most part. I was just getting in a car after being at home for 4 straight months, and driving down, making the photographs, and just seeing the scenes there was pretty intense. I did not imagine that it would be so packed every day, all night. And it was incredible to see that kind of camaraderie and peacefulness. I mean, I never saw anything bad happen there when I was around, and I was there every single day, every night, photographing. So it was awesome to see. And it's unfortunate that they have the gates up or whatever around it now, because even when I came back in August to photograph the city again, after a lot of those sculptures were removed, minus the Lee being not removed yet, there were still people out. There were still people out at night and hanging around, and that wasn't loud. It seemed peaceful to me. So it was really great to be a part of that.
And a follow up to that for you, Kris, and I mean, maybe there isn't a separation, but for you as an artist photographing moments in history and with your own personal emotions and lived experiences, do you separate the work? Is there a separation for you at this point?
I made a lot of work. So, I come back from a trip with thousands of photographs, and, National Geographic will use 25 or 30 of them. And then I have my own archive of work that I use that is not quite journalistic in a sense. So that's what I use for myself. So, I forgot what your question was already, but
is there a separation?
It's hard to separate. It's hard to separate because it is what I do, this like kind of photographing the landscape of America. And so no, I don't really separate it. I just make the photographs. I try to make photographs that aren't too pointed, meaning I'm trying to just show you the scene so that you can have your own thoughts about what that scene is. And that's what I try to do with photographs. I mean, there are some times when you're like, standing in front of Arthur Ashe statue, and then a dude comes up and spray paints White Lives Matter on it. That's a little different, but it's still, I'm standing there and this happened in front of me. It's not, I didn't make that happen. Like these things just kind of occur. So yeah, I try to step back from the scenes and give you something to look at that is devoid of my personal feelings of the subject.
Yeah, makes sense. Ira, a question for you. You performed a piece by Matthew Frayne in Richmond Ballet's studio series in September, and the performance was inspired by the BLM movement. So talk about that experience and what was the dynamic between you and the choreographer who was a white male, but, talking about that piece, just walk us through that experience for you.
Yeah, so the name of the piece was To This Day, choreographed by Matthew Frayne. It was a piece that was actually drawn from certain imagery that was conjured up from all the protests and riots that happened throughout the summer. And it was a piece that it wasn't necessarily Matthew's way of putting how he felt about the protests on the dancers. It was more of him giving us movement that was inspired by certain images. And then all the emotional, all of that characteristics of it came from us, from the dancers. So it was a real collaborative process, and it never felt like he was trying to overstep how I should feel about the piece, or how I should feel about the protest, and how I should do it differently from someone else, or how I should do it the same as someone else. It was all a collaborative moment on stage. He's an absolutely wonderful person, and he's someone who is very aware. He's very aware of himself and the situations at hand. Yeah, it was an interesting dynamic of bringing my emotional content to the piece, as opposed to just having everything completely set on me.
Yeah. And what was the importance of that moment, taking yourself back to that moment, maybe the first time you performed that piece? Do you remember how you were feeling?
Yeah, I was nervous because I didn't know exactly how people were going to take it. I know in the dance world, the audience is primarily, of a white audience. And I feel like there was, especially in Richmond, Virginia, it seemed like it was very topical. So I didn't know how people were going to perceive it, how people were going to take it. But it was a conversation that needed to be had. And it was interesting, actually, the piece itself, it wasn't played to the audience. So a lot of the choreography was set to face the backdrop or the screen, so that the audience was actually watching they were looking at the backdrop with me. So I was they were with me in this ride, in this this conversation. We're having this conversation. And so it wasn't, you know, a performance for them. It was, you know, a situation for them to kind of introspectively think about the situation themselves and you know, take with it whatever they wanted and have a conversation with it afterwards.
Mm, wow. And this is for Ira, Ava, and Kennedy, talking more about the dance world as we're talking about the piece that you performed. But as the Black Lives Matter movement has continued, you know, there have been more open and honest conversations about issues with white supremacy and racism within the world of ballet. So how would you say that you and others are advocating at this point for more BIPOC representation within the ballet world more specifically?
I feel that the organization that we created pushes that very strongly, and as well as social media. We already seen how much, how impactful and powerful it can be, and so just still using social media as a platform as well.
Ava, what about you? How would you say you all are advocating?
I definitely agree with what you said. I'd also say that since everything has went down, I'd also say companies have been coming out with more things for that work for all dancers, more skin tone tights, skin tone ballet shoes, point shoes, and we're breaking away from the stereotype that ballet has always been seen as a white art form, and we're just looking at it as ballet is just seen as something that everyone should be involved in instead of just one race of people. And yeah.
Yeah, Ira, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, well, I think that a lot of dance companies right now are taking the step to have these conversations on how to bring in more Black dancers, how to bring in more Black choreographers, how to uplift, you know, Black voices that need to be heard in the dance world. So I feel like there's definitely big steps to go, but I feel like just the fact that conversations are being made and, you know, organizations are looking within themselves to see how they can change for, you know, for the next generation or for the generation that's already you know, in the midst of it all. And it is really nice to see, you know, ballet companies actually getting skin tones right for a change for like shoes and tights, because we've had I think I talked about this in one of the other videos about how a lot of people of color have to, you know, use their own makeup and take their own time out of the day to pancake and to get shoes to match their own flesh tone. But now, you know, companies are actually doing their part in trying to broaden the horizons and you know, make products for people like us, which is, you know, it's a long, you know, it's been a long time coming, but I'm just glad that we live in a time where that's the standard and that's the status quo now.
I'd say I am retired from my dancing days, but I will say I am helping raise a sweet 8-year-old who loves to dance, and to know that those are the options that I now have as a parent is really cool, and really just like you said, still many strides and steps to take, but knowing that there's that available is kind of a big deal considering where we came. But Kris, talking more about the arts in general, would you say there's been more BIPOC representation in the arts, and anything that you would credit to, or and also maybe your thoughts on where we still need to go?
Well, absolutely. In the last year, there's been an explosion of a lot of Black portrait artists. So you may have seen that online. There's just a lot of people. There's just a lot of people of color making portraits that are getting published by major magazines and major publications. So I think yes, last year. But the problem with that is it all began with George Floyd being murdered and the Black Lives Matter movement after that. So can the momentum stick? I'm unsure. I hope that it does, but I've seen this happen before and I've seen it go backwards. So you know, I hope that this is a little bit different, just because it changed the world and not just pieces of America, like maybe the last times these things have kind of occurred. So I think that maybe there is a more lasting change this time, but we still have to push it. As artists, we have to push it. I see a kind of issue with people of color only getting to photograph other people of color in a way. So that's a big thing too. So it's like, when will I be able to photograph like Spielberg or something, like something like on that realm, like that's still not happening. The Black people are photographing the Black people. Sometimes not, that's not like all the time, but for the most part, that's what's occurring. And yeah, and I think that's all I'll say before I get into trouble or whatever, but like things can still change way more than they have already. There's still a lot of inequality in the art world, especially on the museum side and the gallery, and that we won't even get into because we're still talking about like editorial positions, but you can still look at every major museum collection in America and see that they don't have Black people in their collections. I mean, very low percentage. So that stuff needs to change as well.
And Kris, talking more about your work, and you mentioned this, it deals with capturing the racism in landscapes all across the country. You talked about the tour that you took, but your photos that you took here in Richmond, talk about how they're connected to the greater theme and everything that you saw during that time, and how have you seen your photos be used to advocate for understanding and awareness of racism and still the symbols, or I guess you could say remnants of the past that still exist in many places?
Yeah. It's hard for me to explain that one because I don't know where the photo goes, right? I make the photograph, it exists for, in this particular case, National Geographic's photographs. They've been on the cover of January's issue, like this George Floyd photograph here. And I don't know who that goes to. That goes to 100,000. I don't know how many people. So I don't know what I hope that it can change something. That's all I can really say. Like, I hope that the work that I make gets to people and actually kind of changes a mind or a perspective. I know that people on Instagram have reached out to me and said like, oh, I did not even know that existed. Or, like there's like even this little, there's a sculpture not in downtown Richmond. It's like a Polk or Pike or somebody right north of downtown. They have a sculpture in the middle of a street. It's like this pole that sticks up with a dude on top. He's buried in there. It's the only one that's an actual like burial site. It's like him in there. So they don't know how to move that one. And it's an interesting like perspective to like, anyway, I don't know why I'm telling this story, but like, I think that I don't know where it goes. I hope that it can change some people's minds about how Black people can make work in the world. I don't know if I don't know that many other people of color that are focused on making landscape work. So it's a little bit different also. So there's a lack of diversity in landscape photography, and there always has been. So I hope that things are changing. I hope that there's more room in the future in all artistic practices. Maybe we have to do it all ourselves. I think that's what we've proven all the time. We always have to do it ourselves. So it's like, I'll just keep pushing it, and hopefully things can change slowly, and hopefully I can die knowing that things actually did change. But it's going to take a long time.
You talked about
it shouldn't take as long as it's going to take. I'll say that much.
You talked about not always knowing where the photos go, but do you maybe this is a short answer, could you see yourself maybe publishing a book, something that we could all purchase to be able to see that work, and something that could be preserved on the shelves of people's homes?
Yeah, that's my other practice, right? I am a publisher, and I've been publishing my own books for a decade. But this time I'll probably work with an actual publisher, and I'll co-publish a book about these images, because there's so much to show people that I have like me and a designer are working on it right now. We'll have the book ready for the fall, and it's going to be pretty intense. I mean, it's going to be a 120-page book of racist stuff. Every single page will just be racism. So it'll be interesting it'll be an interesting discussion. That's when I'll be able to see, like, do people really want to see this? Because then I'll know how many people buy it or not.
Wow. We will be looking out for that. Did you say September?
Follow me on Instagram, and I promise I'll let you know. That's all I can.
That's the easy solution. That can be done very quickly after this conversation. Well, to wrap this up, I really appreciate listening to all of your perspectives, your stories, the things that you're doing. I hope that those who are watching feel the same way, but this is for everyone, a wrap-up question. And Ava said it, it's been almost a year, which is really hard to believe. I mean, 3 months from now or 2 months from now, we'll be at a year. I mean, wow. And so what do you think has changed or evolved from the Black Lives Matter movement that we're seeing today? Kris, you talked about 2014 being when things really started to pick up. But within this past year, what do you think has changed, and how can artists continue to be activists in their community if that's what they want to do?
I can't speak for the dance world at all, sadly, because my mom and both of my sisters are dancers. But as far as the arts goes, there is so much more representation for Black and people of color in the art space now. They're getting grants, they're getting opportunities for like money opportunities, real opportunities. So I really think that that's a new thing. That I hope that continues. And yeah, that's all I can say. The art world is changing. Hopefully it changes a little bit faster.
I would say, had there not been all the technology that we have now, this probably would have gone unnoticed, and it probably would still be going on as badly. But since we have the technology that we have, I've definitely seen a difference. And even though I feel as if there's been definitely more of a divide, there's also been a sense of community and people that have come together. So there've been a little bit of a political divide, but then also people have kind of come together to support the cause in the middle. And I would just say this is far from over, but I say also that we're just going to keep fighting until we can get what needs to be done. And artists and dancers and all the above are the best people to do it.
Yeah, I agree. I feel like we've made it undeniably hard to ignore. And I feel like that's our goal, is to just make it aware, make everyone aware of their responsibilities and the contribution they can give to the world and how impactful it can be. And so just uncovering those and making people speak out on things they might not want to is just the best way we can do it.
I would say to keep the conversation going, and especially in the dance world, don't take what has been the status quo as the end all say all. If you feel uncomfortable about things, make sure there's a space now where we can speak and say what is on our mind, and know that this is a place for us, and it's a place for all of us. It's not just for one person or one people. And to, like Kris was saying, not to let this die out. Don't let the next tragedy spark a new thing. Just keep this momentum going so that change can actually happen.
Awesome. Thank you all so much. This was great, insightful, good to just hear all of your stories, like I said before. So thank you, Kris. Thank you, Ira, Ava, and Kennedy for joining us. And thank you again to Truist and PwC for the support of Viewpoints. And the Richmond Ballet is committed to the pursuit of active and ongoing learning and creating a culture that is reflective of all voices and perspectives. So for anyone wanting to learn more about Richmond Ballet's commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, you can go to the Richmond Ballet website. Thank you all again for sharing your stories, for the time that you spent, and thank you all for listening and being a part of this Viewpoints episode.